Few miles away, police say that gunman walked into another dance hall in Alhambra, Lili's, shortly after that mass shooting in Monterey Park.
Yeah, our KCAL's Jeff Nguyen, they're live with this part of the story, Jeff. We are learning about very heroic citizens that were in there.
Yeah, so Leslie and Pat, just a few minutes ago, we were able to speak to a family member that actually owns this studio. I'm going to step aside so that Joe Ruiz can kind of zoom in past the glass doors right there. You see the gold-colored frame right there. So that, if you remember the photos that were distributed of the suspect, you may notice that that frame was there. Well, the daughter of the owner confirmed to us just a few minutes ago that those images were actually captured in that lobby. Let's also do this. We are going to roll some video for you because this studio celebrated its 29th anniversary last night. Brenda says that her family has owned this studio for nearly 3 decades. Her mother ran it for years, and then after her mother passed away, Say and her brother ran it for a while. And this afternoon, one of the instructors that actually works at Lili told us that the students at Lili in Alhambra also were students that would go back and forth between this studio and Star Dance. We learned that the ballroom dancing that is taught here is very, very popular with the AAPI community, especially among senior citizens. A number of folks have told us that this is a great form of exercise and it allows people to get together. And Brenda says that she didn't really want to talk too much because she is dealing with so much grief and sorrow right now. But she believes in her heart that there were more than 2 people that fought off an armed suspect. And she also mentioned what the students meant to her family. And in essence, these students are family to her. Take a listen.
They've been very loyal, They've always came to our studio. My mom, she actually ran the studio for a while before she passed away, actually. And then me and my brother, we ran it for a while. And, she always said that the elderly folks here, they always come and support us. So and they've always had, they've always supported us, so.
And certainly they supported you, but I mean, you also provide a certain outlet for them. I mean, I spoke to one gentleman. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you want to kind of elaborate on what this place means to so many people?
It's a place where, this is what my mom said. She said that, well, where would all the elderly folks go to hang out and dance if because, times have been tough, especially after COVID and all the other ups and downs. And she just said that it's very important, to always remember that, there's not folks that would come to your studio for years and years. Those are very special people that will remain loyal. And I know a lot of them were victims last night.
And as you can imagine, Brenda certainly was very gracious to speak to us during this time of sorrow. Earlier in the evening, Sheriff Luna told us that the suspect was disarmed by 2 people and that the weapon that was found here after those heroes fought with that suspect was what was being called an assault pistol with a large capacity magazine. We have learned through social media from Lili Studios that they will reopen tomorrow. We were hoping to speak a little bit more to Brenda about that, but we were not able to do so. The social media post for Lili did say that when people return, in terms of the students and the teachers, they will be screened before they go inside. For now, we are live in Alhambra. Jeff Nguyen, KCAL News.
Well, that's obviously a part of their healing process, Jeff, is to allow people to come in and, participate in what they came to do in the first place, but now even with more meaning, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. This is a family business, right? It's maybe basically a mom and pop business that has gone through the generations. And I think, for those of us who are maybe closer to the middle stage of our lives, the people that are in here are basically like our grandparents or our parents, if you will, to be more precise. And so, you know, when I brought that up, you know, that was something that Brenda really wanted to touch on because, you know, these are people who have really been loyal to her family, and not just, you know, through the years, but certainly the last 2 or 3 years have been very difficult. And so there is, as we can all understand, that sort of bond that all of these people feel, not just with the studios, but amongst one another, being able to have fellowship with one another as well. And so, you know, perhaps that is why they want to kind of be with one another and maybe kind of, you know, talk about the heroism that was displayed here, because, you know, it's amazing what people are willing to do in such a situation. You know, as I'm talking here, I am seeing a gentleman with some flowers, and he's just placed some flowers on our news van. That's very kind of him, but he's kind of walking around with some Gerber daisies out here, so you can just kind of see the sort of impact that it is having on this community. You know, this is a community that takes a lot of pride in its senior citizens. You know, people are not left behind, and, you know, people who are grandparents and older are basically revered here. You know, it's a part of the fabric of this community. So, you know, certainly that is why, you know, so many people are in pain tonight, ladies.
And we talk about Lunar New Year, Jeff. You know, we were talking about this with you earlier. The celebration of ancestry is a major part of that.
Oh, absolutely. You know, for a lot of people, especially in the Buddhist faith, a part of going to temple is certainly to pray for good health, but it is also an occasion for you to pay homage to your ancestors. You know, one of the integral part of that prayer service is a lot of times people will bring food, like favorite items for their parents or their grandparents or whoever it is that they want to pay homage to. And so, you know, certainly it's a ceremonial, but it's the core aspect of it is gratitude and giving thanks for the people who have paved the way for you. And certainly, you know, for a diaspora population, that is certainly very meaningful, because for a lot of people who are of AAPI descent, you know, to cross a vast ocean is not a simple thing. You know, there is a through line of overcoming great obstacles, if not a lot of trauma in that process. So whether, you know, your family is a descendant of someone who came here 100 years ago to work on the railroads, or a more recent newcomer in terms of a refugee, you know, that is something that a lot of people understand. Whether you speak Vietnamese or Mandarin or Cantonese or Japanese or Korean, you know, that is something that is basically the through line in many parts of the San Gabriel Valley. You know, representation, we talk about that a lot, but this sort of migration, the settlement of this area basically began around the 1980s or so, when a lot of people who maybe have lived in, you know, closer to downtown LA or, you know, on the east side of LA, they started migrating out here. And through the years since the 80s, you know, if you were to drive through Atlantic Boulevard or Garfield or Main Street, you know, you'll see this sort of amalgamation of cultures, where you will see English and other languages, you know, come together. And I think that that's why the local leaders here, as well as law enforcement, are very mindful of that, because there are so many different languages that are spoken here. But at the core of all of that is this identity of a family and, you know, community. Ladies?
And the universal language, of course, is one of acceptance. They always made people feel welcome, and food. Talk about sharing. And that's one way we certainly learned about other cultures, unless you've been, you know, fortunate enough to be exposed to have a family member, or possibly, you know, but that's always something. The first time I moved out here over 3 decades ago, I went to Monterey Park and just had some delicious food, and I'll
Some of the
never
best
forget
food.
that. And it was, you know, it was very welcoming. And I just enjoyed listening to what you said about the community itself, and actually, too, what Lunar New Year means. It's about celebration, but it's also an opportunity to learn and to understand one's history and one's culture. And we're such a melting pot here. It'd be a nice thing if we all understood each other.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that we
Yeah, if I may.
we learn through instances like this, you know?
Yeah, forgive me, I didn't mean to cut you off. You know, I often think that food is an ambassador of culture, right? And you know, I think, you know, that's where that comes in. And you know, and you mentioned the idea of faith as well, and I kind of want to edit myself because, you know, certainly I brought up the Buddhism aspect of it, but to be very clear, there is also a huge Christian population in the San Gabriel Valley as well. You know, there are a number of Christian churches that are here, so it's not this sort of binary thing, right? There are a lot of different faiths that are observed throughout the San Gabriel Valley. You know, I think some of our colleagues down by City Hall, you know, they were talking to a pastor from a Christian church earlier, so you know, I think during a time like this, you know, no matter to whom you pray, I think, you know, people are going to have to figure out how, you know, they can make tomorrow a little bit better than tonight.
Well, Sunday service is a way to do that. But wouldn't be surprised that if we see a number of denominations getting together on a Sunday for worship service and inviting others that would not necessarily, you know, go to that particular church or community. But that's one way you bridge the gap, and certainly a way that you heal.
Jeff Nguyen, thank
Without a
you
doubt.
so much. We will be checking in with you later tonight, but we speak about the trauma, the victims, the families.